Why, hello there, YouTube, and welcome back. I am Davros and I'm a Whovian, and now we are on episode 2 of this series of A History of Who. And this time we're going to be talking about the Second Doctor era mainly, and, how Patrick Troughton taking over a role and being given a blank canvas for it. So, of course, we all know the show started in 1963 and it starred William Hartnell, and for the first few years, things were alright for him. But then came the departure of his original TARDIS crew, such as Susan and Ian and Barbara, and he gained other companions like, Vicky, Stephen, Katerina, Sarah, Dodo, and then there was Ben and Polly. And of course, William Hartnell started to, well, develop a breathing problem as he smoked a lot and was in an early stage of like dementia and stuff, and he was becoming difficult to work with. And of course, they wanted the show to continue, but how would they do that? Well, like I said, one idea was to just replace him with an actor that looks like him and have them not notice the difference. But they thought, hold on, the Doctor's an alien. We're still making this up as we go along, so what if, say, the Doctor had this ability where he could renew himself, literally become a completely different person and change? Now, at the time, this was not called regeneration. The first time regeneration would be used as a term would be in 1974's Planet the Spiders. Of course, we'll get to that one eventually. So, anyway, searchers began for a successor and they found British actor Patrick Troughton, who had a resume of other acting roles, of course. Also, he was, well, completely different. He was younger, for starters. William Hartnell being 55 and then leaving at the age of 58. Patrick Troughton was 46 and was came in to take over the role. Now, this, of course, was touch and go at the time, as producers and showrunners had no idea how audience would take to this big transition. But of course, all was well when Patrick Troughton took on the mantle and the show continued and did even better. After the first Doctor's encounter with the Cybermen, his body wore out and he became a cosmic hobo. And as I said, Patrick Troughton wasn't trying to be like Hartnell. He was, as I said, given a blank canvas to completely put his own spin on the character. And of course, he was going to change his outfit slightly from the waistcoat and the frog coats and the cloaks to a big baggy coat and a bow tie and look a bit eccentric, as he brought some comedic energy to the role as his Doctor. And I feel since then, everyone who's followed after has always, I feel has a bit of a spark of Patrick Troughton in him. Like, he was the first actor to take over this role and, put his own spin on it. And I think from there on, every actor has always done that, put their own spin on it, but maybe gathering little bits of every other Doctor in there as well. But given that, at the time he was the second Doctor and the first actor to take over from William Hartnell, he again was, making his time up as the Doctor as he went along. And of course, the show rebranded. And the second Doctor had encountered Daleks, but one of his most reoccurring foes were the Cybermen. And he had various other companions, including inheriting Polly and Ben. And he also had other fan favourite companions like Victoria Waterfield and Jamie McCrimmon and Zoe Harriet, who, those two, Zoe and Jamie, are companions that I, feel spent the longest time with the second Doctor. Of course, the show continued, and, they even upped the title sequence, changing it slightly, but still maintaining that classic theme. And of course, Patrick Troughton settled into the role brilliantly, admitting to Hartnell on his first day that he was scared stiff, but Hartnell assuring him that there's only one man in the country that could take over for him. Jokingly, he said, "Oh, hope they found him." That's what was depicted in the docudrama TV film An Adventure in Space and Time. But maybe I think it kind of did do that. So Troughton played the Doctor for 3 years, encountering Cybermen, the Daleks, of course, them being a fan favourite monster, and the Cybermen, of course, becoming a fan favourite too, as they reoccurred a lot in the Second Doctor's era. And of course, the Second Doctor would join forces with Unit, fighting robot Yetis, getting to know Alistair Lethbridge Stewart, who would become the Brigadier, and of course, in the 1968 serial, The Invasion, I feel that was like a sort of test run to see how the Doctor would get on with Unit in the upcoming years to come. In 1967, Sidney Newman dropped down as the head of the drama department at the BBC and decided to call it a day. But the show continued with script editor Terence Dicks and many other writers, Robert Holmes, all kept the show going with the chops of Patrick Troughton. And in 1969, we, saw the end of Patrick Troughton's era in the 10-part serial The War Games. Now, this one, even though we'd encountered Time Lord before, such as the Monk in William Hartnell's era, we encountered more Time Lords that were messing with historical wars and turning it into their own little game. And of course, the Doctor feeling out of his depth, he summoned his people, the Time Lords, to help. And for the first time ever, we actually saw the Doctor's people, the Time Lords, and we went to his home world of Gallifrey. I mean, yeah, it was all done in a studio, but it was the 60s, the budgets were tight, they had to, make do with what they had, and I think what they made work was good. We saw other Time Lords like the War Chief, the Warlord, and other Time Lords. It's then revealed that the Doctor had actually, even though he changed his appearance, they knew it was him. And it's revealed that the Doctor was put on trial by the Time Lords for leaving with a TARDIS and also gallivanting around. And his companions, Jamie and Zoe, were sent back to their times with only their memories of the first encounter they had with the Second Doctor. I mean, they attempted to escape but were unsuccessful. As for the Time Lords, they accepted a plea from the Doctor, stating that there is evil out there in the universe and he still has a part to play in that role. And they then sentenced him to exile, sending him to Earth in the 20th century. And not only that, but part of his punishment was also a change of appearance, stating to him that his appearance has changed once before and it will change again, giving him a choice of a different variety of portrayals and looks. This was the first time as well they established that, even though it was not yet called regeneration, the change doesn't have to be random. It can be controlled, as we find out in this. Not only can the change be random, they can choose characteristics, what they want to look like. Of course, with the Doctor not choosing and the Time Lords being unfair with his picks, they chose the appearance for him. And in the 60s of Doctor Who ended where we see the Doctor beginning his exile and his change of appearance. And of course, the Doctor's fate would remain unknown until the following year. And of course, the BBC at that time thought, you know what, Doctor Who's had a good run, let's end it there. But as a new decade approached, the 1970s, there was no fresh ideas for the BBC. They couldn't think of anything new. So they decided, you know what, let's renew Doctor Who for another season. And Patrick Troughton, feeling he's done 3 years already, had no interest in returning, as of course they established his appearance was going to change. So the search began for a new actor in the role to play the third Doctor. And, of course, as the show entered a new decade, a new era, a new Doctor, the show, for those who could afford it at the time, a coloured television set, for the first time ever, the show would now be, would be now in colour